Okay, let's unpack this. When we talk about accomplishment or, real wisdom, what are we actually talking about? I mean, beyond just the usual stuff like success or status.
Right. It often comes down to inner qualities, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in these older traditions.
Exactly. So what does a highly attained person look like, say, according to texts like the Dhammapada?
Well, that's precisely what we're diving into today. We've got these two uh, really quite remarkable stories from the Dhammapada commentary.
The commentary. So that gives the background, the context for the verses themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like the narrative behind the wisdom sayings. They're not just abstract ideas. These stories show them in action. They really bring it to life.
Okay, so our mission today is to explore these two specific narratives, look at the verses they're explaining, and pull out the key insights. What do these ancient teachings really mean by inner freedom, by ethical conduct?
hmm We'll look closely at the situations, what happened, and what that reveals about overcoming things like, well, anger and attachment. Qualities that are, let's face it, still pretty challenging for most of us.
Definitely. And we're focusing on this idea of a Brahmana here, not in the caste sense, but as a spiritual term, right? For someone who's destroyed their inner defilements, a kisava.
Precisely. It's about demonstrating that perfected inner state.
Yeah.
And these stories connect that directly to the definitions in Dhammapada verses 285 and 289.
Great. Let's jump into the first one then. It sounds like a really intense example linked to verse 285. It's about handling violence and anger.
Yes, it really is. So the scene opens with a bhikkhu, a Buddhist monk. He gets a meditation subject from the Buddha himself and heads off into the forest to practice.
Okay. Dedicated practice.
Very dedicated. And through his efforts, he attains the ultimate goal, or a handship. He becomes a kusava, one whose defilements are, well, completely gone. Greed, aversion, delusion eradicated.
Wow. That's profound freedom. So having reached that, what happens next?
Well, the proper thing is to go back and inform the Buddha. So he leaves the forest, starts the journey back to the monastery.
Makes sense.
But this is where things take a turn. As he's walking, a woman from a nearby village, she's just had a huge fight with her husband, runs away from home. And for whatever reason, she ends up walking along the path behind the bhikkhu.
Okay.
And the text specifically notes the elder did not see her. He's totally unaware she's back there.
I see where this might be going. Meanwhile, the husband.
Right. The husband comes home. She's gone. He assumes she's run off to her family's place, so he follows the road. And then he sees her following the bhikkhu.
Oh, no. Misunderstanding waiting to happen.
Instantaneously.
Yeah.
He jumps to the conclusion this monk must have taken her, and the source emphasizes his state, anger having arisen. It's immediate, fueled by that wrong perception.
And that anger leads to...
Yes, unfortunately. He confronts the bhikkhu, first with threats, and then, well, he channels all the fury he feels towards his wife onto the monk. He beats him severely. The text says he beat the elder with hostility towards the woman.
That's horrific. Just completely misdirected rage.
Absolutely, and the physical result is described starkly. His whole body became covered with lumps. Just terrible injuries. Somehow, he manages to make it back to the monastery.
Goodness, imagine him arriving like that. What did the other monks do?
Well, they see him, obviously injured. They start tending to him, maybe massaging his bruises. And naturally, seeing the state he's in, the lumps and swelling, they ask, what is this? What happened?
So he tells them the whole story.
He recounts the whole incident, explains how the husband just attacked him out of the blue.
And this is the crucial part, right? How did he react during the beating?
Exactly. The other bhikkhus, thinking like most people would, are probably amazed he survived, let alone his composure. They ask him point blank, friend, when that man was striking you like that, what did you say? Or like, how did anger arise in you? They just assume it must have. How could it not?
It seems impossible not to feel anger in that moment.
But his answer, this is the core insight. He simply replies, friends, anger does not arise in me.
Wow. Just flat out no anger.
None. And this is so counterintuitive, so outside their own experience, that the other monks are actually skeptical.
They don't believe him.
They seem not to.
Yeah.
They go to the Buddha and report it almost like a complaint. Venerable sir, that bhikkhu, when we asked if anger arose, he says, friends, anger does not arise in me. He must be saying what's not true, explaining otherwise. They think he's either lying or maybe doesn't even understand his own mind.
So they think he must have been angry, maybe just didn't realize it or is pretending?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But the Buddha confirms the bhikkhu is telling the truth. He validates his state of attainment. The Buddha says, bhikkhus, those whose defilements are destroyed. They are the ones who have laid aside the rod. They do not make anger, even when being struck.
He's saying, yes, this is the authentic state of someone who's truly free. That lack of anger is real.
Precisely. And that is the quality defined in verse 285, which the Buddha then recites.
Can you remind us what that verse says?
Sure, that's it. Having laid aside violence towards beings, trembling and firm, who does not kill nor cause to kill, that one I call a Brahmana.
Okay. Having laid aside violence towards beings, that seems clear enough. But trembling and firm, what does that refer to?
The commentary explains that. It's a way of encompassing all beings. Those who are still trembling because of craving and attachment, and those who are firm because they're free from craving, like the Arahant himself.
I see. So it's universal non-harming towards everyone and does not kill nor cause to kill.
That stems from having rooted out ill will completely. Such a person wouldn't harm anyone themselves, nor would they incite or ask someone else to harm. This internal purity, this complete nonviolence in thought and deed, that's the mark of a true Brahmana, according to the Buddha here.
This story is just such a powerful illustration, maybe even shocking. It shows that laying aside the rod for someone truly accomplished isn't just, not hitting back, which would be amazing enough.
Right.
It's a deep internal state where anger, ill will, it just doesn't come up, even under that extreme provocation. That's the freedom verse 285 is pointing to.
Exactly. It really makes you rethink what overcoming anger could mean, not just managing it, but its actual absence.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one facet. What about the second story? This relates to verse 289 and is about not taking what isn't given. Sounds less violent, maybe.
Less violent, yes, but equally insightful about the inner state. This one happens in Savatthi. It involves a Brahmin, but one described as having a wrong view. He was apparently quite obsessed with avoiding smells.
Avoiding smells. Okay, a bit eccentric.
Apparently so. Because of this, he'd take off his upper cloth when he sat outside his house, facing outwards, leaving the cloth just lying there on the ground nearby.
Okay, so he leaves his cloak lying around outside.
Precisely. Now, along comes a Kathasava bhikkhu, another accomplished monk, walking back to the monastery after his meal round. He sees this cloth lying there. So he does the standard thing, looks around, sees nobody, he sees no one. And thinking the cloth is abandoned, ownerless, he mentally designates it as a pasukula, basically, a discarded rag that monks are permitted to pick up and use.
So he's following the monastic rules for finding abandoned items. He thinks it's refuse.
Correct. He perceives it as ownerless, designates it as such, and picks it up. He's not intending to steal at all.
The Brahmin is still there, just maybe facing away or something?
Exactly. The Brahmin sees him take the cloth and immediately reacts. Comes running over, shouting. The text says, "Hey, bald ascetic, you're taking my cloth."
Okay, another confrontation based on a misunderstanding. How does this bhikkhu respond?
Again, very calm, very direct, no defensiveness. He just says, "That is yours, Brahmin." As soon as the Brahmin confirms ownership, the bhikkhu hands it back immediately.
And explains himself.
Yes, he clearly states, "It was taken by me with the perception of it being a rag, not seeing anyone. Take it." He lays out his genuine perception of the situation. No intention to take something belonging to another.
Okay. So, incident resolved kind of awkwardly. He goes back to the monastery.
And tells the other bhikkhus what happened.
And do they react like the monks in the first story, like maybe with a bit of skepticism or amusement?
Yes, similar dynamic. They seem to find it a bit funny, maybe tease him slightly. They ask him things like, "Friend, was the cloth long or short, thick or thin?"
Focusing on the object itself, its qualities, maybe its value.
Exactly. Their questions reveal a mind that still evaluates things based on desirability, physical characteristics. Was it a nice piece of cloth? Was it valuable?
But the accomplished bhikkhu, his perspective is different.
Completely different. His answer cuts right to the core issue, the inner state. He replies, "Friend, whether it is long or short, thick or thin, I had no attachment to it. I took it with the perception of it being a rag."
So for him, the physical details were irrelevant. He didn't see it as a desirable object because his mind wasn't operating from a place of craving or attachment to possessions. He just saw a rag.
Precisely. No attachment, no evaluation based on potential gain.
And let me guess, the other bhikkhus report this to the Buddha too, still finding it hard to grasp.
You got it. They go to the Buddha saying effectively, "Venerable sir, this bhikkhu claims he had no attachment to the cloth, he just saw it as a rag. Surely that can't be right. He's saying what is not, explaining otherwise." Again, they project their own potential reactions onto him.
They assume there must have been some thought about the cloth's nature or value.
It seems so. But again, the Buddha confirms the bhikkhu's account. Bhikkhus, he says, he is speaking what is. Kesavas do not take what belongs to others. He affirms that this detachment is the reality for one whose defilements are destroyed.
And this leads to the next verse, 289.
Exactly. The Buddha recites, "Who in this world does not take what has not been given? Whether long or short, small or large, beautiful or ugly," that one I call a Brahmana.
Long or short, small or large, beautiful or ugly, so that covers all kinds of things.
Right. The commentary elaborates it could be cloths, ornaments, gems, pearls, things that are expensive or inexpensive. The point isn't just the act of not stealing, though that's part of it.
It's the why.
It's the why. It stems from that inner state of non-attachment. The Kusava doesn't take what belongs to others because their mind doesn't grasp at things based on perceived value or desirability. They see things neutrally, like the bhikkhu saw the cloth simply as a rag, because craving isn't driving their perception or actions. That freedom from grasping is the foundation for the ethical conduct described here.
Okay, so bringing these two stories together, they're like case studies, aren't they? Showing these specific qualities of a Kisava, this true Brahmana figure.
They really are. Concrete examples. The first shows that profound freedom from anger, from ill will, even when physically attacked. The second shows freedom from taking what's not given, which isn't just about rules, but about a deep lack of inner attachment, of greed.
And it's fascinating how in both stories, the way these accomplished monks behaved was so different, so counterintuitive to the other monks, the ones presumably still training, that they literally questioned if they were telling the truth.
It really highlights just how radical this state of inner freedom is compared to ordinary human conditioning.
Yeah.
It underscores that Brahmana here isn't about birth or status. It's purely a description of spiritual attainment.
Defined by conduct, yes, but conduct flowing directly from that inner liberation.
Precisely. Freedom from defilements leads to pure conduct.
So, if we boil down the key insights from these sources, true accomplishment, true wisdom in this context, it's not about what you get or achieve externally.
No, quite the opposite in a way.
It's about these profound inner states, like the genuine, complete absence of anger, even when you're harmed. And this deep freedom from attachment that means you just don't want to take things that aren't yours, no matter how nice they seem.
That's the essence of it. It's about inner release, inner purity.
And that really gives us something to chew on, doesn't it? You know, we live in a world that's constantly measuring success externally.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Wealth, power, status, possessions.
yeah.
That's the usual yardstick.
But these stories just flip that completely on its head. They challenge us, challenge you listening, to think about defining accomplishment differently. What if real success, a truly wise life, wasn't about what you've gained externally, but about what you've managed to let go of internally?
Specifically things like ill will, anger, grasping, attachment.
Right. What would our whole understanding of a successful life, a flourishing human life look like if that inner letting go was the main way we measured it?
That's a profound question to sit with, definitely. A very different way to look at things.